Welcome to the Mixing Mondays podcast, episode 9.
So today I want to talk about why it's important to start off your mix with a good recording and a minimalistic workflow. So as an engineer, your job is to capture the most perfect moment in the recording environment. And so this means whether you're running a take back 50 different times and just comping together one perfect take, or whether you're telling an artist to run it back until we get that one take that sounds amazing, I'd much rather spend all the time in the world being patient with the artist. You'll notice when you get a good recording, it doesn't take a lot in the mix to get that sound to sound good. However, if you're stuck with a take that you don't necessarily like, then no matter how much processing is done to it, no matter how
many times you try to add on effects to hide and mask the fact that it is not a good take,
the way harder it becomes to get that sound out and to actually pull out that emotion that you're originally seeking for when you're recording the song. From the very, very start of the chain, you want to select the right microphone for that environment. For example, if you don't have a treated room, the mic that I'm using right now, the Shure SM7B, this is a good mic if you're recording anywhere. You can go outside and record in the middle of the wilderness with the Shure SM7B and it will sound beautiful no matter where you're at. Granted, it also takes an artist to do a good delivery and so on and so forth, but we'll get into that later on in this episode. There's also different tones within each mic. You can get a bright mic, for example, the Sony C800. On the other hand, once again, the Shure SM7B, this is a very warm mic. So after you've treated your environment or you're rocking with a microphone that doesn't really need to be put into a professional environment to sound good, then you need to make sure that you are setting the mic up properly.
Different mics have different proximity effects.
For example, the Shure SM7B, I can get right on top of this microphone and still not sound too muddy. Some microphones, when you get right up on it, they sound way too heavy in the low end, and it's really hard to carve out in the EQ process later on to get that mic to sound full. So experiment with playing around with where you want to place your mic. So start off with a hand's length away. That's usually a good point of reference. Move the artist or the mic forward or backwards a little bit and just see what that does to the tone. Or you could tilt the microphone upwards towards an artist or downwards towards their chest, and that also provides different tones as well.
After that, you want to make sure that all of your gear is set up properly.
So for me, I'm using a preamp. I'm using the VLC preamp by Hazelrig. Really, really good preamp. I can get into that in a later episode as well. But I would have to set the gain properly on there, making sure that as soon as an artist delivers into the mic, I don't have the settings set way too hot or way too low. And if they are way too hot or way too low, I can quickly adjust it and get it dialed into a point where they're not distorting and they're not super duper quiet to where we're not even hitting compression and his vocals don't sound strong enough within the whole mix yet. Once you have all of that set up, then when the artist or you go to record on the microphone, you can easily make minor adjustments to get the sound that you're looking for without even having to process. The less processing that you could use, the better. Because you got to keep in mind that every single part of the chain that the audio goes through is running through whatever converters that plugin might have, whatever processing that plugin might be bringing. The more that you can eliminate in terms of what plugins you're using, the cleaner the signal will be passing through. Even when you're recording, you want to make sure that you are planted and you're not moving hella far back or hella far forward, because this can cause different shifts in frequency response. So find a good placement, stick with it, eliminate as many plugins as possible. Do not just throw in plugins just because you can throw in plugins. I used to do that a lot. I would learn a new plugin online and then instantly just throw it on just because I was like, oh, I just learned this, let me use it. Then I would have all my inserts filled up. It wasn't until later then I started bypassing plugins and realizing this opened the sound up more.
Less plugins, keep your signal as clean as possible, and just get really, really familiar with the current plugins that you're using instead of just throwing on plugins because you learned it.
Just try to stick with a handful of plugins. I would say one EQ and one compressor, and get really familiar with how they react to vocals and all types of vocals, all types of songs, and just listen to the tone and really pay attention to it. You got to keep in mind that music is realistically a combination of different sounds in a tempo, and you could play with volume and panning. EQs and compressions and reverbs and delays, all that is just creating the space, shaping the tone, and trying to get somebody to feel an emotion off of hearing what is playing. And you got to start by getting a good take and putting emotion to it on the front end, so that way that emotion can carry through on every single process, mixing, mastering. Thank y'all for watching, and I'm gonna catch y'all on the next one, man.